Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a valuation expert in St. Louis, Missouri. I have the pleasure of discussing fraud and forensic accounting with Chris Ekimoff, a certified fraud examiner and CPA in Washington, D.C. Chris also serves as an expert witness in matters of SEC financial reporting, complex GAAP accounting, whistleblower, mortgage-backed securities litigation. I mean, where are you not doing stuff, Chris? Welcome.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Melissa.
The type of investigations I'd been involved in are not nearly as exciting and as huge as some of the things that you've done. So just, for example, just give us one type of forensic accounting investigation that is of interest, that is like conceptually, what did somebody do and maybe how did you figure it out?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest engagement that I was involved with relates to this investment guy. I don't know if you heard of him, Bernie Madoff, New York City.
Never, no.
Real great career for a long period of time, but, just got the raw end of the deal. All kidding aside, obviously one of the most notorious, criminals and serial embezzlers in the history of the financial accounting world. But the role that we played in that, if you remember in December 2008, Bernie basically admitted that it was a Ponzi scheme, that it was a fraud. I worked at the time for a firm that got hired to be the expert witness for the bankruptcy trustee overseeing the Bernie Madoff investment services company to help unwind that business and to recover the assets from those people that they called net winners. And books have been written on this, and I encourage, if you guys are interested, to read more about it. Wizard of Lies is a great book that outlines a lot of the issues in the case. But our task as experts for the trustee were to prove out the elements of the fraud. So admitting to fraud is one thing. And again, fraud being the determination that comes from a court of law, more so than the actual activity itself. You can only prove fraud to a judge or a jury. Chris can't sit here and say it was fraud or not, right? It's a term of legal meaning. And so when you have someone who's admitted that it's a fraud, if you're going to bring an action against a third party related to that fraud, as in Chris gave Melissa $100 and took out $150 and then went on his merry way, meanwhile Steve gave Melissa $100 and got back $0. There's elements of the legal ramifications to that scheme that, Steve should get some of Chris's net winnings, as they called them. So to help prove out that case, we had to put together the excruciating detail of everything that Bernie Madoff did and everything he didn't do. Everything he did related to, the ways that he manipulated investors to give him more money, the way that he staved off their requests for withdrawals, the way that he printed up these statements that were believed to be fake at the time and then proven to be so through a lot of analysis from that point. And then to prove what he did not do, to prove out that he didn't actually purchase stocks on his investors' behalf, that he didn't go through and operate a trading strategy that was giving the returns that he purported to tell all of his investors. So the engagement itself, you talk about being in the basement, working 16-hour days. We were at a warehouse facility on Long Island going through all of the records that he had printed over a 7-year period. And it looked like Costco, right? You just had lines and lines of boxes of stuff that was printed out that we were hand tabulating and reviewing and checking for quality control so that we could support an expert in court who would make the opinion that this individual did not trade 10,000 shares of GM stock on January 1st because those trades didn't occur. We see no proof that they occurred, and only 8,000 shares of GM were traded that day, right? Or following similar circumstances. So that was a great kind of broadly focused, not only forensic accounting engagement, but great insight into the legal world and some of those nuances for how fraud works there as well. The other side of the spectrum, I've spent some of my time doing internal investigations for smaller companies. I used to work at not smaller per se, but I used to work at a global hospitality company here in the DC area, doing internal investigations for them. And so we'd be looking into individual hotel properties that were attempting to inflate their revenues, and deflate their revenues to avoid paying more in a franchise fee to the hotel company that they had their hotels branded as. So we would have to find a way to prove out that they actually had 100 rooms rented on January 1st and not the 50 rooms they reported. So we would go through things like the room cleaning logs at the property and see that, okay, you told us on your financial reports that you had 50 people stay in your hotel. Why did the maids clean 102 rooms the next day? Right. if I'm a hotel, that's not a great way to spend my variable cost, right? Is paying maids to clean rooms that are already clean. So you look for avenues like that to get around some of those issues and really identify some of the underlying facts, like you said, unwinding those less than perfect scenarios to know what's really going on.
Yeah, and a lot of things that I had gotten involved in the past was like those kickback schemes.
Mhm.
And, when you're defrauding the IRS, it's a serious situation. Like
It
you can
is.
steal from a lot of other people, but defrauding the IRS is
That's right.
not something you want. Tax evasion, tax fraud, not the one you want to mess with. But I think it's interesting because a lot of times in the accounting world, and even as being an expert witness, we kind of start doing these investigations and doing like really kind of it's not grunt work. Somebody has to go through and put eyes on these documents and know what you have to know whether you have a case or you don't have a case and what's the issues.